Very welcome to Irish Roots Festival 2021. And right now, I'm going to be chatting to one of the greatest UK drum and bass MCs in general, MC Chickaboo. MC Chickaboo, how you doing?
That was a really nice intro. Thank you very much.
No problem, no problem. I mean, I came across you like 10 or 11 years ago when you did that track with is it called Bitches Brew, the record label, I think, and it was a remix by the Flaws, Ewan Pearson, who's this DJ from he's from Birmingham, actually. Is he from Birmingham, Ewan Pearson?
Hey,
I could be wrong on that. I could be wrong on that. He was living in London, and I used to do something with this record label in Dublin called D1 Records, and he came over to DJ, and he was friends with the guys who were on the label and stuff like that. And that's like in the late 90s, early 2000s. But anyway, so I've heard this track Flawless, and you do the rap on it, and then obviously, I mean, you've done, you had that massive hit with Shapeshifter with Timo.
Yeah,
Timo Maas, and I kind of came across Timo through Darren Emerson, who's Underworld fame, I guess, and he and Timo were really good mates, and Timo used to come and play the end, and I was a resident DJ in the end with Darren. What else? There's a couple of other things. You've worked with Mason as well, I saw. You did a track with Mason, who's a guy that I've done some music with Mason as well, actually released some tracks on his label. And
have you?
Yeah, I've done a few things for he's got a record label called Animal Language, and I released a couple of singles with Arveene and McChickaboo a couple of years ago, and then I recently did a remix for him, which was one of the last things I did, which was a couple of years ago. And in the middle of doing the remix, he had a guest rapper on it, and it was Azealia Banks, and Azealia Banks kind of exploded in the UK in not the right way.
Well, yeah, she's very notorious, and unfortunately, it's not for her music, which is sad because some of her tracks are so killer.
You should hear this. You should hear this rap she did. It was killer, and we got this. We were in the middle of doing the remix, and then obviously all that stuff went on, unfortunately, and then they were replaced with Stefflon Don. So I guess that was probably a good little flip too, But so
much fierce energy. Steph is quite smooth, isn't she? She's raw, but she still has like a smoothness to her. When I think Azealia now is just raw.
I mean, Azealia is like a 500 tanks marching down the street, and that's her vibe, and she's brilliant. So I don't know. Do you separate the artist from the kind of the art? There's always that debate going on in my head with me, and I'm always not sure. Music is great music, and if you love music, should you not like it if there's some issue going on with the artist? Maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. It's a difficult question, I guess. Anyway, but
I feel two ways about it. I was just speaking about that today. Like artists like Miles Davis, for example, renowned women beaters and quite abusive men. Marvin Gaye, for example, and his questionable age of his wife. I think he met her when she was 15 or something.
That's common in the music industry too.
And so, but then do you stop listening to Miles Davis or Marvin Gaye? And so sometimes if the vibe catches me or I'm just not feeling it, I'll just skip that track or I'll just not pay attention to that artist, for example. But it is very difficult to avoid what the person's like compared to what their art is like, and separate it. Like, who are we to do that? A lot of people you wouldn't know about their personal life previously, but now with the explosion of social media, we know everything about everybody. And so I think with the more modern aspect and view of the situation, it's quite easy to avoid that if you choose to. But going back, unless you watch a couple of documentaries or you talk to people that were around in that era to tell you what this person was like personally, you don't know. So you're just left to enjoy the music. So it's complicated for me.
When it comes to you, it's not very complicated because you're obviously a sound head.
Well, I mean, I'm a dickhead in recovery.
Aren't we all?
I've had my times, and I'd like to think that, I've elevated and grown and matured somewhat. But, there's always things that will make me revert to my previous. Road rage is quite easy to turn me into. But, I'm trying to be a bit more peace and love, and you
But
know.
that's what it's about, I think, at the end of the day. And obviously, it's great also to be part of the I Am Irish Irish Roots Festival. Lorraine's a bit of a legend, and it's great to
Absolutely.
have a day to celebrate. When you have multi heritage and you're and being part of Irishness is kind of one of the most commonnesses in the world. I think where kind of Irish people are everywhere.
Yeah, that really they do get about, right? And yes, Lorraine gave me. I wasn't expecting my reaction to be what it was, but when I was invited to the Irish Embassy during Black History Month a couple of years ago, I was invited by Lorraine, and when I walked in the door, I got really emotional. And I saw all these Black people and mixed people, and I could hear them with Irish accents, and it just meant so much to me to be there. Like, I felt my Irish grandmother was with me and was really proud that I had made it. Like, to me, that was a real sign of my success, my professional success, that I got to the level that, I was there. But it wasn't necessarily because of professional, it was also personal. But I was just so grateful to her for that experience, just to be there and to hear her speech and to see how moved all the other Black people and mixed people were to just be in that building. 20 years ago, do you think we would ever be Black people just walking around the Irish Embassy, like drinking champagne and being like, yeah, hi, these canapes are lovely? Like, it just wouldn't seem, maybe a token, but for Lorraine to gather all those people, and I feel such a sense of pride now. I always have, but to see so many other mixed people with Irish heritage and to be brought together in such a really amazing, open and honest way. I hear, I've watched some of the talks and people are just so open, and it's really inspiring to see and hear their stories and to see their faces. Black Irish people exist. When I tell people that, even now in 2021, when I said, oh, I'm doing a talk for Black Irish, and people were like, huh? There's Black people in Ireland? Whoa. And it's like they're giving me the Scooby-Doo expressions and stuff, because it's like they don't realize that Irish, it's not just a potato in a field and a pint of Guinness and a squiddly diddly and, like, a white person with blue eyes smiling. It's just not that. There's so much more. And my family are from Northern Ireland, so that itself is a much more complex version of Ireland and how it's represented in the UK. That
So.
the accent alone makes a certain generation of English people act very prejudiced when they hear it. I remember growing up, people would snap their neck at, my nan's accent. If she spoke, she had a broad Northern Irish accent. At one time, it mellowed over the years, but at one point it was quite Ian Paisley.
What about you?
That darn the stars, like, that's how they interpreted it, even though she didn't speak like that. That's how they heard. And
so funny, isn't it?
Growing up through the 80s, there was a lot of prejudice against both of my parents. So it was really interesting to see,
That's crazy. You're getting in the neck twice there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I'm
in a lot of physical altercations with people defending me, their mixed child. People would have a go at my dad and people would have a go at my mum, but luckily they loved each other and they could fight. So, they came through it. But yes, to go from those experiences as a baby to growing up to be an adult woman and walking into the Irish Embassy. Like, of course I can walk into the Jamaica one. You know what I mean? I look like this. I look more like my Jamaican family, but I'm just so proud that I'm half Irish and half white. And I've always corrected people and stuff. So yes, back to my thing. It was just such an emotional and really loving and giving thing that Lorraine has done to bring us all together. And it's 100%. So well, it's just so brave of you all, especially the ones that live in Ireland, to just be just so proud of being Irish. you know.
I mean, there is no other way. I don't think when you're Irish. I think like I think we're so we're weird because we are the only country that has a day celebrated everywhere in the world. Like we're the most celebrated country in the world essentially because St. Patrick's Day is celebrated in more countries
I've
than
not
anywhere else in the world. When you think, no, you never think about it, but it's you think they have a St. Patrick's Day parade everywhere. They don't have a they don't have a like 4th of July out everywhere in the world. They're not celebrating that everywhere. They're not celebrating St. George's Day everywhere. They're not celebrating Brazil Day everywhere, or the equivalent. So I guess that's kind of what was unique about being Irish in one respect. Obviously, we have so much. We're up for the crack, which is the main thing, and I think that is one of the reasons why, almost the reason why the two of us are speaking today, because we're both like providers of the crack, and that's the same
crack you speak, sir.
Yeah, we're definitely like the right sort of crack dealers, basically. Bringing the fun to the stage, and that's it. You got
eyes at the crack of dawn, honey. And I stay there all day.
I think being in a club, and I'm certain there's like elements of who we are as people. Like my background is my dad's, he's South African Indian. He's of Indian origin or descent. He's 3rd or 4th generation Indian in South Africa, and so he's come to Dublin, studied in London, came to Dublin as part of the ANC. A lot of them moved to Dublin because it was a lot safer. And Kader Asmal, who was one of Mandela's councilmen, had based himself in Ireland, and he kind of said, "Get yourselves to Ireland. It's it's open. There's less spies here. It's all about like the love, of your struggle." And I guess I think that still rings true today. But I definitely feel like there's, having these kind of multi-heritage backgrounds and these like, it kind of gives you an advantage as a music person because you're tapping into all these different cultures then, even though you don't even realize it. You have like, obviously we all know the drum comes from Africa, but, there's, and I think that's prevalent in almost every culture, but the Irish people are really obsessed with the bodhrán, and drumming is such a huge part of Irish music and timing, and Jamaican music and Indian music, this huge rhythm is so important.
Yeah, the Irish rhythm of the foot stamps as well, the drums playing, but the feet make a noise as well, always. And that's what I love about that side as well. And the passion and the soul of an Irish singer delivering a heartbreak song will pull your heart out. There's nothing like that. Indian singing, I find as well, just because they have just so many more notes. And when they hit those kind of notes, there's something inside that's released that I think connects to us, and it heals you to the point when it can, it will make you emotional, shed a tear, which that in itself, I think, is a healing process.
100%.
But yes, the Irish rhythm, there's a certain rhythm, I think, that Irish people have that the English, and they just don't.
They just don't have that swagger and groove. I would say that anyway.
They don't have the click, let alone, like you're saying, the swagger and the smile, the confidence.
I mean,
just talk to anybody, to go and approach anybody. And my Jamaican father is very much like that. He will talk to anybody and everybody, and everybody you hear them laughing. He can just connect with anybody from any culture and any walk of life. And my Irish side, of course, is more than chatty and friendly and brutally honest and outgoing. And so Jamaicans and Irish people, I find, are very, very similar. It's all about food, family, religion, music, respect, cleanliness, in my experience, excessive. And, that kind of, they've got very similar ideals and morals of ways of life. And they've both had a hard time culturally. You go back just a couple of generations and it's a very different story. You and I would not be sitting here in this situation. And so, times have moved on in many ways, I find, but not so much in others.
I mean, it's interesting. I think, weird. Me growing up in Ireland, I mean, I'm, you know, I feel like I'm kind of privileged in that respect, is that because my parents sent me to a you know, non-denominational school, and because I'm like 6'2" or 6'3", and I'm a huge bloke. I think I did suffer forms of racism throughout my life, but I think there were probably a lot less because of that. Because you
Yeah.
know, people were possibly afraid of me, and I think, yeah, maybe that protected me from it, and that's definitely a privilege. But you know, I think the Irishness, you know, even though stuff like there's nastiness everywhere in the world, man. Doesn't matter if you're like, you know, black, white, you know, blue, an alien, you know, like it's here, you know, it's like there's
You
always
know,
going to be, yeah, it's always, you're always going to be, there's always going to be someone who just doesn't like you for the way you look or what you're about, you know. So, but you know, I do honestly feel that there's, you know, even thinking about my dad coming to Ireland and then meeting my mum and then going down to Westmeath, is where my mum's from, and having to, you know, speak to my Irish grandfather who took him to a cattle auction and spoke to
okay.
him for a couple of days. I think brought him to see the guy, and my dad probably didn't have a clue what he was saying. But by the end of it, they obviously got on. And once my grandfather's like, "Yeah, he's cool. He can, you know, he's all right," and vice versa. And I think, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be, you know, racism and ignorance, but I think there's definitely like an ability to connect. You know, Irish people kind of have a unique relationship within that, or within a world that's kind of been, you know, built by whatever rules, but you know, we're definitely open to understanding what it is to be from a minority.
Absolutely. My mother went through a very similar experience when she, you know, took my Jamaican father up to Manchester to meet my Irish family, because they had moved over from Belfast. You know, it wasn't the best environment to live, and so my grandparents came to England, and yeah, it wasn't the most positive response to me when my mom was pregnant. But then as soon as I was born and they met me, that, like you said, the Irish way of being able to connect, they have never showed me anything but love, and are more likely to start a fight if they hear any racism towards me. I've had to stop my cousins from, you know, seriously getting involved in physical altercations because somebody was racist towards me.
Wow.
Now, um, to have that feeling of being protected by those people that are my family and I look nothing like them meant everything to me when I was a teenager growing up and struggling with my identity of, am I Jamaican enough? But then, am I Irish enough? But then I was born in England, so there's a lot of English things, you know, that like the saying sorry all the time and thinking that I'm brilliant in that way, rather than get to a point when I am a good person. I don't really know. I think there's an education system here can give you a bit of a, you're brilliant because you speak English and the rest of the world wants to speak English and be English. And do you know, they
Yeah.
kind of brag about colonization
I
basically,
mean, you know,
and
real Britannia. Britannia rules the world.
to be proud of that. And you know, but then being half Jamaican and half Irish, knowing that that whole thing is not necessarily true.
Oh, the phone's just going nuts here. Is that my phone? Is that your phone?
Is that your
Hilarious. That was actually my phone. That wasn't my ringtone, though. That's There you go, man. You know, there's more to life than ABBA.
yeah. So I know these cool people, and we've made a few tracks. And it's give me.
It was Instagram. I swear to God, it was some. They had like, it was an Instagram video, and someone is like DJing, some serious techno DJs playing, and they've like cut an ABBA track to him, which is hilarious. You know, always hilarious. You know, so you know,
Oh,
hey, you know, life's full of surprises.
that was so good. That was so brilliant. I'm glad it happened to you and not me.
I thought it was you. So I was like, this is brilliant. It was me, unfortunately. But
It's always going to be you, Arv. It's always going to be you.
So moving swiftly on. I'm totally like sidetracked now by that one.
So tell me, do you DJ?
I'm a DJ and music producer. So I've been currently residing in West Cork since December, and obviously my DJing is on hiatus till everything kind of kicks back in. But yeah, I've got a history in dance culture going back to like, you know, the mid '90s, and kind of growing up in the mid '90s and the whole '90s thing, and coming. It's the tail end of like acid house culture of the mid to late '80s, and then comes into the '90s, and it gets more. I guess it kind of more specialized, and you know, where it was more about a cross spectrum of music. It started getting into like techno, you know, hard techno, deep techno, house music. The breakbeat hardcore scene started veering off into different types of drum and bass. Then there was jungle, you know, there was all these different things kind of happening. So I kind of started DJing in the mid '90s, and kind of, you know, by 2000 I was kind of in my full flow, and then moved to London 10 years ago, and have been producing lots of different types of music, working with various rappers. I've got a project with this guy Shimon Cassette, who's a rapper from LA, and we've been doing this kind of hip house thing for the last couple of years, which has been a lot of fun, really. You know, it's a real nod to kind of the old school hip house sound that kind of never really evolved into you know, beyond the kind of like cut up a few samples and like, you know, old acid house style production from the late '80s, you know, in the early '90s. And yeah, so and now I've kind of gotten into more of a production role, and also starting to manage people a little bit, and, you know, pass on the knowledge.
Nice, that's really good. So do you mentor people as well? I imagine you do, with that much experience and stuff.
I've always have done, you know. I've always kind of like helped people along, and, you know, just, you know, finding, you know, I'm always about finding the new people on the block, essentially, because, you know, they're the future, essentially, and without them, you know, there's nothing to come. You know what I mean? So you need to kind of keep bringing people through, and I've always kind of, and for as long as I can remember, I've always kind of supported and helped other people, and I think that's such an important part of what dance music's about. And I think, you know, and also club culture is probably the only culture that doesn't, you know, maybe, you know, right now I think club culture can be very, you know, open and expressive and inclusive in a lot of respects. You know, sometimes it can't be, but I like the really good clubs. There's never really a policy of, it's, you know, it's about the people. It's never really about what color you are, you know, what persuasion you are, what religion you are, you know, what gender you are, what, you know, it's never been about that. It's just been about like great music and collectively people adding different vibrations to the mix. And they've always been the best environments I've kind of been part of. When the clubs are really good, everyone's welcome.
Yes.
And music's a kind of a key for that, then, you know, for kind of, you know, like, it sounds really cheesy, but always your music is then turns into a key for breaking down barriers.
Absolutely. My only issue with dance music is the lack of equality for women, female artists. And especially, you know, in scenes like drum and bass and the more subgenres, dubstep and things like that, you'll see more women in drum and bass, but you won't see any gay people, or you wouldn't see like a couple of drag queens in there just getting down and stuff. And so for me, the fragmentation of the subgenres has caused a bit of damage with, like you're saying, the inclusivity, because when the clubs did allow everybody and anybody in, those parties are the best. Like if you go to Ibiza or you go somewhere like that, and there's just so many just different weird and wonderful people all in this space with the main objective to have a good time and have fun. And then, like you're saying, that's when the keys and the locks happen. But for me, the lack of women producers, like where they're out there, because I know they're making beats, but they're hardly acknowledged. And if they are, it's a little bit of a gimmick sometimes, you know.
I completely agree with you, man.
You know, like a fancy photo shoot with low cut things, and it's okay that they might want to present like that, but I think that's management telling them to like, get sexy, darling, we'll get you loads of gigs if you just like get your backs out a little bit, you know, that kind of management.
Oh God.
So
that's like the 70s management, though, that kind of kept going into the 90s and 2000s, you know?
Just go on, darling. Just get one out. Just drop one shoulder. Go on. They're still here. They're still out there doing it. You know, they're encouraging women to sort of sell sex more than sell themselves as an artist.
Well, and I think we have a long way to go, to be honest with you, in terms of like, I mean, we talk about diversity, we talk about gender equality. I mean, they're all hot topics of the last like few years, but
yeah,
for us to really make a change, it's there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, I know a lot about the music industry, and you know a lot about the music industry, and what we both know is it's been men running the music industry for so long.
And how do you feel about inclusion riders? So DJs and some bands and artists now have put in their booking contracts that if there isn't a certain like 30% of women, or there isn't another woman on the lineup with them, or a woman on the lineup, that they won't play in that club or that venue for that promoter. How do you feel about inclusions? Because in the corporate world, they were forced to include women. That's why now you have female CEOs and women running businesses and women in the cities and stuff, because they were forced into it. And so I feel that agents, DJs could really, especially the big names, they could really help us women out if they just put on their booking contract, I won't play unless there's a female artist playing. How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's cool. I mean, I'd be like, brilliant. I've always been about like supporting all sorts of people, I think, at my gigs. And I ran a stage at a festival called Body and Soul. And I think,
oh, I know that.
It's a really cool festival in Ireland that's been going on. And shout outs to them.
Have I played? Would I have played there with Soul to Soul?
Oh, Electric Picnic maybe, or Body and Soul. I don't know.
Electric Picnic, I think that's.
You might have done Electric Picnic. I mean, I didn't even know you were playing with Soul to Soul, but that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I was in Soul to Soul for maybe 11, 12 years.
I didn't even know that, man.
Yeah, I took a bit of a sort of swerve after Breakbeat. I worked with Rennie Pilgrim and had a couple of tracks. And around that time as well, I joined Soul to Soul and stuff. And then because I was so busy with them, I got sort of taken out of the dance scene for like at least a decade. And so the only thing I was doing was recording tracks with dance artists. So I might not have been in the parties necessarily, but my tracks were still being played. So I was video footage of people like recording the dance floor in Ibiza or somewhere, and the track was playing. So
wow,
good. But yeah, I was in a soul band for like a long time.
That's amazing. I honestly think that, like, having, for me, it was always about like, diversity is such a key element of because of my background, I guess, but it's also like, whenever I throw a party, I want to represent as diverse a community as possible, because I want the like really cool banji gay kids hanging out with the cool fashion. I want the like, absolutely awesome breakdance, old school breakdance crew in the corner. I want the like rap kids over there who are like, who are like all hip hopped out. I want the like really cool house kids. I want the like disco kids. I want them all in there who just appreciating what good music is. So I think I've always been really kind of about, and I think as well, because of my kind of upbringing, I guess I'm always about championing the unheard voice. It's always been about like, right, actually, not saying I want to piss people off, but I want to actually I want to make people think, and I kind of, like this, whether it's like putting two really great Irish DJs who are girls together to do a set at the pinnacle part of the festival, because they're brilliant DJs, but also it shows people that this isn't just a men's sport. You know what I mean? This is, which I think is,
and also Irish talent as well. A lot of sort of festivals, you'll go to an Irish festival, for example, Electric Picnic or whatever, and the headliners are British or American. And that's a real shame, because it's not like they couldn't find some Irish or support the Irish acts. So they become headliners, like it's not going to happen if they don't get the support and stuff. And it's just what I find was interesting was that you said about, you think maybe it was due to your upbringing that you have a real open eye for inclusion and stuff. Do you think that also, because I feel like a real defender of people, like I really like trying to stand up for people that aren't heard, or, if I see something in the street, I'm like right in there, like what's going on and stuff. And I think that is maybe due to like my clash of cultures meeting together and making me quite hot-headed, but at the same time I know what it's like to be oppressed, and so I think I just jump in if I see somebody being oppressed or having a hard time. And I do genuinely think that is because of my mix of cultures. people that I know that are one or the other don't have the same kind of...
They can't see injustice, you see, because they've kind of been brought up in a singular culture. So sometimes, well, not all the time, but sometimes they can't see injustice or understand injustice or discrimination if they've never been brought up in a world that how could someone possibly understand it, unless they've been brought up around it or experienced it. And I think that kind of, for me, that leads into the change that is coming with diversity and with gender balance and equality. A lot of these massive organizations, and even if I'm looking at Ireland, I'm looking at all the kind of, even the kind of governments and the kind of, the councils. There's not that much of a gender, or kind of the gender imbalance is there, and the kind of, even the color, but the race imbalance is there, so it's difficult for those people to kind of really understand what it is to be maybe a young black kid growing up in the streets of Belfast or in the streets of Galway and being the only black kid on the street, or in the community, or even though there's a lot more black faces and non-white faces around Ireland, it's still, we still have a long way to go. I'm not saying the whole country should just be, it should be affirmative action and we should just hand it over to everyone who's not white, but that's not the case at all. It's just about understanding. I think a lot, and I think it's got to change, really, and I think it will change. I feel it is changing, and I feel like we're now starting to talk about positive things and flipping it into what are the positives, and hence us having this conversation. It's not just about because we're people of color. Yeah, it is. We're here because of that, but we're actually showing people that we're able to do stuff in our own world, and we're representing our cultures, our many cultures, and our many talents come from those many cultures, and we're the product of it, and I think, and that's the point, it's and there should never be a fear of it, there's no fear to be had from that, really. It's just, adding extra, I always look at it as some extra sauce, that's all it is. That's what I've got, man,
Isn't it? Can we just put some seasoning in this? Just a little sprinkle. Is that okay? I was going to ask, are there any black mixed Irish politicians? We had the first gay prime minister a couple of years ago, obviously Leo Varadkar, he's gay, yeah. So I used to play this really great gay party called Mother before the lockdown. Is Cormac and the guys. Yeah, they're amazing. They're they run the best gay party in Ireland, or one of them anyway, and I wouldn't even call it a gay party. To me, it's just a party with great people, so I don't think that it needs any tag, but I guess, but Varadkar would be at that party, and I'd seen him there a couple of times, and this is a few years ago, and then he became the Taoiseach, so I was like, wow. So he's, and then I found out he was in school with one of the kids I grew up who had a similar background to me, Vinesh Ramya. I think he went to the same school as him, and he has a multi-heritage background. So, and it's definitely, that's a big thing, regardless of whether you believe in the politics or not. That's really good. That's good. That's good to hear that, and the only way, I think the only way that sort of the middle vanilla-y normalized society that don't really sort of really do anything extraordinary, in that they don't go to raves and they're not supporting sort of that part of society, they just do their job, pay their tax, maybe go to the pub on a weekend, a garden centre, and then that's as exciting as it gets, right? Those kind of people, no judgments, everyone lives their life, that's great. But those people, unless they're exposed to diversity, which they're not going to be because they live the same life on the same track, unless they see people like politicians or newsreaders, for example, it becomes more normalized for them to see black faces and gay people and things. So I think, as much as it's, that part of society I find a little tiresome at times, a bit tedious, I think we still also need to infiltrate that as, black people, queer people, dodgy people, weird people, those of us that are a bit left, I think could maybe, you would make a great politician from just me talking to you for a little bit, I don't
think am I corrupt enough though? That's the question.
Anyway, so it's all right. You just be a good corrupt one, right?
Well, I mean, I'm always open to kind of representing, and I think we're heading into a time of change, and that's the great thing about now, regardless of whether the change isn't happening in front of us, and there'll be and even if you coming from your communities that you represent, racism is there's a lot of racism in the gay community, there's a lot of racism in the music industry, and it's the same for me, I'm working in those spheres, and I'm like, right, there's it's here, yeah, it's awful. How can we change this? Let's be positive about it. And I think, I feel almost like everything's been outed in a way, even though, yeah, change doesn't happen overnight, and change hasn't happened overnight. But I think the fact that it's outed almost feels like now we get the opportunity now to focus on the positives and demystify the fact that, oh no, that strange black person walking down the street is not a strange black person. It's just someone from Somalia who's actually as nice as your granny. You're just afraid because you haven't actually listened to them, or you may not be able to communicate perfectly with them, but they actually have the same morals as you. They may have a different God to you, or they may have a different way of worshiping the universe to you, but essentially they're just the same as you.
That's the thing. People fight about God and stuff, but everybody's God represents love and protection from this all-knowing, all-seeing power that is there, and you are its child, essentially. Most of the religions. And so it's really, the older I've got, I really find it more and more difficult to understand the division when, if you are religious and they're religious, you love God, it's your own God, but you still have dedicated your life to that. So I don't get it. It's like us being ravers. I can go anywhere in the world and meet another raver, and we just connect because we're ravers. And so I don't get why religious people have that disconnect when they're supposed to
embrace
love. We can all meet up and just have a right good, just put a thumping sound system on any type of music. And as a raver or as a dance music, as a dance music lover, you're just going to get down, and you would get down with people that you don't have to speak the same language, because it doesn't matter. Like you're saying, it's a vibration. It comes through your feet. You express yourself, your body, your hands in the air. You release tension and toxins, literally sweating. It's a tribal connection to an old force. That is love, I think.
That is love. I completely agree with you, man.
Away from raves saying it's just about drugs or it's just about getting high. It really isn't. That's how we connect with our version of God. That purity, that love, that singular direction of expression. And to me, that is what dance and dance music is really all about. And there's a lot that's been lost along the way. But I think, like you were saying, because there's been sort of an explosion of people realizing negative things about the world and the systems and stuff. And it is really good that people have had a positive outlook. Most people do want to change and want to be better. So I can't wait for the clubs to open again to see if what we've learned in the last 18 months, we're actually going to put into practice and bring back those 90s diverse venues when all types of people are in there just feeling great. And then when you leave, you have a really good week because you've been topped up with so much love and positivity that you carry that through. I remember seeing nobody have a physical fight for about 5 years when rave was happening, because that feeling from the weekend, the joy and the love and the expression and the release of tension just carried you all the way through. Your terrible factory job, I was working behind the bar and doing all sorts and having to like clean up puke or whatever. But when Friday came, it was like there was just no better feeling knowing that we're all going to meet up and we're going to go to a rave that night or a club. You can't beat that feeling. And that's how excited my grandma was to go to church, where she met up with people and they had a singular direction. And
yeah, it's the same thing.
And they sang and they danced and they, some people get tranced out. And It's the same thing, you know.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, and I'm just kind of conscious of our time, you know, because I think we've run over a little bit. But like, I think that is just a wonderful synopsis of music culture and, you know, dance culture and club culture and how it can help break down barriers. Wonderful.
Absolutely, it's really nice to like meet you.
You
and
too.
I can't wait to see you in person. Will you let me know when you're in London?
I will do. Our paths will cross again, no doubt, man. And hope maybe in the studio even. I don't know. Who knows?
Oh, that's not the worst idea I've heard.
It's all about the fun, man. But listen, absolutely wonderful.
Send me any tracks and anything. If you can hear me on it, I'll be on it.
Let's do it. Listen, have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for taking part. And you're watching the I Am Irish Roots Festival 2021.
Thanks, Lorraine.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Irish Roots. Irish Roots is a completely volunteer-led festival. If you can donate, please do. For more information and to see what else is happening, jump over to our website. It's www.iamirish.org. From all of us at I Am Irish, Gurav Mila Mahagut.